It's too. This thing's all bullshit. I had the same problem watching yours the other day. I could not read anything on the screen.
Yeah, the definition on those projectors is not very good. Much better on the monitors. That's a frequent complaint.
She can have that.
Got nothing on this.
Nothing?
For Ethernet to be plugged in.
Yeah, like I said.
Ah, wait. There we go.
There you go.
Let's plug it in. It's not the wireless. Wireless is the problem. It's not seeing anything.
Just turn it out. While having a sky.
I just moved it from there to there.
Well, this one, actually, this
Because Colonel Meow is responsible for the cat. Oh, yeah. Probably missed that. But
these are
because they took a picture of Colonel Meow. They They called the cat pro, they put it out. And literally, they just like posted the station. They said, look, it's a cat. And like within like 24 hours, there was thousands of pictures. Like people with their cats. And then somebody posted a picture with their chihuahua in their head. I think that's Tim.
Oh, yeah. Very
I didn't remember wrong.
We can trust. They put stuff in the water.
Yeah, what?
I know, I have to.
You don't want to.
Be right back.
I've heard that.
Watch my I'm fine with it.
that there's all you get.
Because the width must be different.
If it can't work, I can just go with, try to go with an order.
Now, if I want to sign you up for other classes, that's all I'm saying.
Do you have a lighter?
I wanted to sign you last year.
Did you win study last
Yes,
year?
I did. That'd be excellent.
So he looks like a traffic monk when you're in the house.
No, my daughter.
He lives in
My daughter loves that.
It's the house.
Hey, what?
Not Sunday, but no.
Oh,
Sunday.
I've never seen a house girl with
Oh, I went there.
Right, last night.
Nothing that's more popular.
Wi-Fi has a capture for a web page that you the first time you try to actually go to the login.
And this
So I told him, yeah, you can do it. You can fill out.
So you don't have
Well, we did recommend that.
Where's that email?
They're trying to figure out how to get around it.
I'd
Right,
go
so
with
those are.
Yeah, I
So this is
know.
Little one in Dallas.
Well, this is just a center point, like a
5 years.
You don't actually do it.
So I just have to run over my cellular.
It's like taking that seat over.
Yeah.
Well, she's on.
It's like a snow being accepted.
That's Jerry's.
It comes with a hat.
Thank you for.
He spent some time in North Carolina. I've been all over.
They're a smirk.
Yeah, it's been annoying all week.
Yeah, but
Well, I've been using it on cellular, but it like changed the battery of my phone.
Right almost got that now.
Right? And it's slow.
And they're self-insured.
Well, I was
Is that the umbrella? I can read it
out.
It's one that closes by itself?
Yeah, so I can
Travel
order it
high-tech
to my computer, which I can then go out.
Yeah. Are you getting an output on your computer?
Yeah. I have one.
Okay.
sync, that would be awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, that, I love the roller coaster, but that
But yes, and see, if you see right there, what he is seeing is in our box.
Oh, okay, oh, cool. Oh, really?
You can look into my eye. All right, everyone. My time's officially started here, and I've got a lot to cover in a short period of time, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So this is who wrote this? Lee. It's about authorship and semantic web markup for SEO, social media integration, and a little bit of Google Glass. All right. Who am I? My name is Nick Moline. I am a senior software engineer at justc.com. I've got all the various social networks. You can feel free to follow me on them, or don't bother trying to go to every single one of them, though. You can just go to my website, nickmoline.com. I've got all the links up there. And if you don't want to type in nickmoline.com, you can scan my QR code and go straight to it. See, people use QR codes. At least I do. All right, so let's go over the topics we have today. Before I do this, let me ask a couple questions. How many people know about authorship markup, Google authorship markup? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, how many people know about schema.org? More of you, so why are you here? How many people just want to heckle me because you know who I am? All right. And how many people want to see about this weird thing on my head? Okay.
It's called a hack.
All right, so the topics I'm going over today, I'm going to start with authorship markup and how you can connect your Google profile with the pages you write on your own website so that Google can actually attribute you as the author of your page to the content that you write. I'm going to talk about how to do the same thing for Facebook with Open Graph. The same thing for Twitter with Twitter cards. I'm going to talk about semantic markup and schema.org. And then I'm going to talk about why it matters. And why it matters, I'm going to give you a little jump ahead preview here. It's something called the knowledge graph. Everybody know? Anybody heard of the knowledge graph? One, just Tom. All right. So the knowledge graph is very important. How about Google Now? Anybody hear about Google Now? All right. And so Google Now, and then that actually does matter for things like Google Glass. And then I'll give you a demo of how it matters for Google Glass. All right, so there's a thing called the rel attribute on links. It's been there forever. You may not, if you don't remember it, how about now? Let's link rel equals style sheet. Now everybody remember it? So if you want to link your style sheet to a page, you say link rel equals style sheet, and you put the URL of your style sheet file, and then that style sheet is imported by the browser. The same with a shortcut icon for the favicon. You can say link rel equals shortcut icon. So you can use it to indicate what type of link something is, so that you indicate how it's related to the page that you're on. You can use it for navigation. You can have your link, so if you're on a list of paginated pages and you want to link to the next page, you can say link rel equals next and put the URL of the next page. You can do that with previous page if you're if you're already on page 2 and you want to link back to page 1. You can then go upwards in navigation. You say I'm on a page. If you want to go to the top of the site, this is the URL at the top of the site, right? So a few years ago, somebody, I don't know who, but WordPress loved it, came up with this thing called XFN, the Extendable Friendship Network. And they thought, we'll use this rel attribute to indicate how different sites are related to each other. In particular, they were thinking from a blogging perspective, a blog being a person's blog, and they're thinking, okay, I'm going to link to somebody else's blog. I'm going to actually say how I know that person. So when I link to my wife's blog, I say a rel equals spouse met, so that I know it's my wife and it's someone I've met, who hopefully the spouse always is someone you've met, but for some reason you have to put both. And then the link to my wife's website. And I can say a rel equals coworker to link to my boss's website and put that in there as well. All right? And then let's say I have more than one site, as I'm sure many people do. I do. And if I want to link from my blog to my website, I would then use arel equals me. I'm going to come back to arel equals me here in a moment, because actually rel equals me is actually kind of where authorship markup came from. All right? So about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, Google decided, hey, let's use this rel attribute to indicate that a relationship of authorship. Who is the author of the page that I'm on? So they have rel equals author. Like many of these things, you can either use them in actual clickable links, so you can use them in A tags, or you can use them in link tags, which just like the stuff, you can put them up in your header and link to content without actually presenting a link to the page. Google supports both. If you put the Google Plus profile URL of the person who wrote the page in there, you're indicating when Google spiders this page and they say, rel equals author, and here's a Google Plus URL. That means the person who owns this Google Plus URL is the author of this page. All right? So they then go and they link that thing up. You could also do it a two-step way. Rather than linking directly to Google Plus, let's say you want to route people to a page on your site first, a author page about you. Like say if you're on a blog with multiple authors, you want to link to, this is the blog page that this author wrote. You can have your arel equals author go to that author page. They do recommend that if you do this, that you still put that invisible link, the Google Plus link, put that one in there too. You can have more than one author link, right? But then on that author page, well, that's not a page the author wrote, it's a page about the author, it's a profile. So on that one, use rel equals me to link over to the Google Plus profile. So you can do this kind of two-step hop, where you link to a page on your site that's the author page, and then from there to Google Plus. All right? So what's to stop me from putting on my page arel equals author Jerry Goldman's Google Plus profile, or Tom Bruce's Google Plus profile, and say that one of you wrote my page? What's to stop me from doing that? Well, of course I can do that, and I can put that link. But when Google's wanting to attribute the page that I wrote back to a real person, they want to make sure that it's true and not something that you made up. So they ask you to authenticate the link by flipping it, doing it the other way. So on your Google Plus profile, there's an About tab. All right, the About tab. On this About tab, there's a section for links. All right, if you don't link back to the site that your post that link to Google Plus is on, they won't authenticate the link. So you need to make sure either in the other profile section, or especially in the contributor too, if it's something that you write a lot of blog posts on, that you put a link to the site that you have articles that then link to your Google Plus thing that you're thinking. So if you have both, then Google will authenticate that link and they will attribute authorship. So what does it look like when authorship gets attributed? Let's do a search. Let's do a search for something that probably none of you have ever searched for, but a few people might find funny. Wizarding law. All right, so the legal system of the wizarding community. All right, if you look on these links here, one of these links is not like the others. Anybody know which one? It's the one that has authorship markup on it. The second one. Here, I'll make it bigger for you so you can see. All right. Because I have authorship markup on that article on Justia's Onward blog, and because I have linked my Google Plus profile to my Onward blog the other way, Google has authenticated this link, and they put my picture next to this post. Now on that sea of links, this one really stood out because it was different. It had a picture there. This was something more. I had gone through the trouble of actually authenticating it. There's a little something else they put here too. They put a byline on here. So, this page is by Nick Moline, and that's a link over to my Google Plus profile. So somebody seeing this page in the list of results could go and then add me on Google Plus and follow me. Only 401 people have done that, not from this page, but in general. But people could do that from right there. And this is a link to me. In some cases, if I have, right, if the search result had come up with multiple matches on the same by me, in this case they didn't, there was only one, but if I had done a search where there were multiple posts by me on the same search term matching, they would say, are there articles by Nick Mullane? You could click that and it would give me more. All right, so just linking up that authorship markup, doing nothing else that I'm about to tell you, changed my search results so that if somebody were searching for Wizarding Law, they're far more likely to click my link than the other 9 links on that page. All right? And if you care about Wizarding Law, it's a fun article, read it. So now let's talk about Facebook and how you can do the same thing on Facebook, but even a little bit more.
You wore the same outfit.
Hmm?
You wore the same outfit as in your before.
I was just commenting to Barbara that I realized this morning that I'm wearing exactly the same clothes I was wearing in my avatar. Right down to the hat. So, oh well. Thank you for pointing out my lack of wardrobe, apparently. Okay, so as many of you know, when you go share a post on Facebook, it puts up this little snippet, right? What you may not know is the web developer of the page that created that link has complete control of what that snippet contains. You can control which picture shows up there. You can control what the title says there, which is not necessarily the title of the page. You can control what URL shows up there, even if they put in a different URL that goes to the same thing. And you can control that text, that little descriptive text. So everything below so they write what's up here, whoever's posting your link, but everything down here, that's your power. You can control this. So I'm going to show you real quickly, and I'm going to jump out of my slide deck to do it, but I'm going to show you just how you can do that. All right? All right. So this is that post that I was just sharing on Facebook here. I adjusted the markup a little bit to reorder things to make it easier to read, but let me make it bigger. Oh. Can you read it? All right, or get the general idea? All right, I'm going to leave it. Okay, so Facebook uses something they call Open Graph. They developed it, and it's basically a series of meta tags you add to the page. You first add this thing called prefix to your head tag, and you indicate which prefixes you're going to use. In this case, because this is an article on my blog, I use OG for Open Graph itself, article, because this is an article, and FB for Facebook. Indicate that I'm going to use tags from all 3 of these schemas, so to speak. So the OG part of it here is where most of the stuff is. Here's OG URL. So notice, no matter how you got to this page, I could put a different URL in here, and when people share it, that's the URL that's going to be in that second part of the link. I could put a title, and I want you to see here, here's the OG title, which is that not too fat to journey through space mountain. Notice it is different than my title tag of the page. My title tag of the page, typically in your title tag you include the name of the site and all this other stuff. It just really isn't that relevant when you're sharing it. It's relevant when people are searching for it, but it's not relevant when people are sharing it. So while I have this title up here, I'm using a different title when people share the thing on Facebook. And it's just a shorter, cleaner version of the title. And I've got that there. Same with description. OG description doesn't necessarily have to match the meta description. All right? It can if you want to. And if you don't include OG description, it will fall back to the meta description. But if you want to sculpt what's showing up in Facebook, you can sculpt that by using this OG description. You have a type, in the case this is an article, and then you have OG image, probably the most important thing here. Everybody should add OG image to every page they have. Even if they don't have an image, they should point to something, because if they don't, Facebook will try to find an image on your page, any image on your page, be it an image that's a link to your Twitter profile on the bottom thing, it's a little T icon, and they'll use that as the image for the post. You don't want that. So even if you don't put any images in your article, Put an OG image, even if you make one for your entire site that's just one square image that's going to show up when people share your content. This will make sure that when people share your content, it looks like what you want it to look like, right? So, and then you can set a site name which shows up as a little byline on the bottom that will indicate the name of the site that this came from. If you want to use Facebook, Facebook has its own analytics. Does everybody know that? It's called Facebook Insights. If you want to have your own analytics that actually integrates with your page so you can see how many people are sharing your content and where and how many people you're reaching, put in your profile ID right here, and then you'll start getting stats about this particular page. And if you have a Facebook app, which you should do, it's really simple. You can create a Facebook app in a few moments, and with that you can have control what people can do when they see content you've shared. You can put an app ID here, which will then actually start loading in features from your app when people share your content. And then there's some article metadata. I can say the day it was published, the time it was modified, the category it's in, and most importantly, authorship. Article : author, and I can say that this post was written by me. Facebook.com/NickMullane. Notice I'm using the Facebook URL here, not Google Plus URL or my own authorship URL. I'm saying that when someone shares this on Facebook, this is the person who wrote the page. All right. Show you one that's slightly different. This is at nickmullane.com, which I will show you real quickly. This is nickmullane.com. It's just a simple bio page about me.
The same outfit.
You even have tags?
I do. Well, it's because I was at the Googleplex. And,
Oh, it's the same.
huh?
It's actually the same picture.
But I was at, when I marked this one up, this is not an article, right? It's not an article. So there's an OG type of profile. So this is actually a profile page. And when I use profile, the stuff up here, the OG stuff's all the same. But I get down here and I have profile first name, profile last name. I can mark up this data and split it up so that when people are sharing this content, they know they're sharing information about a person, not about a store. Not that many people are going to share my profile on Facebook, but if they do, this is what would happen. And down here in the FB section, I directly correlate this page to me by using FB profile ID, indicating that this profile ID, this Facebook profile ID, is the same person that's on this page. All right. Just real quickly, I'm going to go show that when Twitter decided they want to do their own, they just copied everything Facebook did. They call them Twitter cards. And so they just prefix everything with Twitter : So, it's saying, so Twitter card equals summary, the type of card is a summary card, a URL, a title, description, an image, a site, and then they have two here, a site and a creator. Now they use two authorship things on Twitter, which makes a lot of sense. I'm not sure why Facebook didn't. Now in this case, this particular page, I wrote both of it, but if we go back to, this is that Wizarding Law article I wrote. I've got Twitter site is Onward Justia, that's the Justia blog that the post is on, and then Twitter creator is Nick Mullane. So when people share this post on Twitter, it says the Justia Onward blog, and people can go follow Onward, and then it says by Nick Mullane, people can follow me. So when people share your content on Twitter, you actually get that authorship attribution right there on Twitter as well. I should also point out real quickly that LinkedIn, if you care about sharing your content on LinkedIn, LinkedIn just uses Open Graph. So whatever you've done for Open Graph works for LinkedIn as well. Okay? Google Plus, they will use Open Graph, but they've got their own thing that they would prefer you to use. So they will fall back to Open Graph and use it, but they've got their own thing, and that's when we get here in a moment. I already talked about Twitter cards. Okay. I'm doing it. Oh, not so bad. So let's talk about semantic markup, a little brief history of marking things up in a semantic way. In the beginning, there was HTML. And HTML is great for markup, but it really doesn't do anything for telling you what that markup is. So while us as humans can look at a page and say, this is a page about a person, this is a page about a statute, this is a page about a piece of case law, what have you, a computer comes through it and all they just see is text. Now, search engines, some better than others. Google's certainly pretty good at it, but they're not perfect. Try to figure out what that text is. They try to understand it. They use machine learning and they use algorithms that they've written, and they try to understand it. But there's just something about it that they can't. Machines are just not quite as intelligent as we humans are. So that when we look at something, we just intuitively know what it is. A machine kind of has to be told. So HTML just wasn't good enough. So then people tried to put everything in XML. They said, XML is going to replace HTML. It will. Remember this in the 90s. Everyone's like, everyone's going to stop using HTML real soon. Everyone's going to use XML. Great for structured data. Not so good for markup. The layperson just simply doesn't understand XSLT. I'm sure I know some of you do, and probably love XSLT, but the layperson simply doesn't. And the weird thing about it is XML was somewhat too loose, right? You make up your own tags. Sure, you create a DTD for those tags, but you know what? That machine coming to look at your stuff, unless you use some standard that's been created for data, the machine comes and looks at it, and it looks even more gibberish than the HTML, because at least they can learn HTML, right? So XML never really took off as a markup language for the web, right? I know everyone loves XML for storing data and having everything be nice and clean. I'm not dashing XML, but as a markup language, it just never took off. So then somebody tried to hack it, and they came up with microformats. So let's take this class tag that you're supposed to use for style sheets, and let's make it mean something. So you'll have, a class equals copyright, or span class equals copyright to indicate that what's in here is a copyright statement. It's a hack, and that's all I'm really going to say about it. It was interesting, and it somewhat works, and there's this huge community of people who try to make a standard behind it with microformats.org, and it's a really interesting idea. But you're trying to use something that wasn't designed for data markup, and you're trying to use it for data markup. Then here's the one that people librarians always seem to love, and people in data, RDFA. Everyone loves RDFA, except me. And you know what? A lot of lay people, they just don't get it. It's confusing. You try to take XML and put it into HTML and make one thing. The CMS systems don't understand it. The developer tools like Dreamweaver and stuff like that, the markup tools, they don't understand it, and I just don't get it. I want to, I really do, but I don't get it. So HTML5 to the rescue. Microdata. Yay. Microdata comes out, and it's part of the HTML5 spec. It's markup first, but with highlighting data. So the idea is you take your markup and you just put your markup like you would normally put markup, but you highlight what the markup means so that when a computer comes by, it reads it. Now, in its core, it has the same problem as XML. People could just make this shit up, right? You can make it up and mark it up with anything you want. So of course, it needs standards behind it. So Google comes across and they created a little coalition with Microsoft and Yahoo and a number of other search engines, Baidu, and they created schema.org. Now what schema.org is a standard set of microdata structures for explaining real items in HTML in a way that computers can understand. Can you bring me some water? So let's take a quick look here at schema.org. All right, so schema.org. It's a very, very simple design website. Oddly enough, not very much of it is marked up in schema.org in of itself, but it's a simple website explaining these things. So you have things, you have ideas. So this is the schema.org page for person. So this is indication of a actual human. It can be alive, dead, undead, or fictional. I never even noticed that undead there. So here's the general basic idea. So we have some original HTML here. So we have some original HTML. This is HTML about a person. And you know, the person's got a name and an image. And if we were to go look at this page that's here, you would pretty much instinctively know that this is a bio page about a person. All right? But a computer would have trouble figuring that out. They'd have trouble figuring out knowing that Jane Doe is the name of a person. Now, Google is probably pretty good at it. They'd probably figure it out. But for the most part, a computer's, you wrote this data. Shouldn't you make it easy for the computer to understand so that they can actually do stuff with it? So schema.org just simply says, okay, keep everything in the same place. Let's just add, either in the spans or divs that are already there, or in spans and divs you create, mark up what this is using things called item properties. So we wrap the whole thing in a div with an item type schema.org/person, and then we just start wrapping each one in properties. So the name is wrapped with span item prop equals name. The image, you already have the image tag, so you just add item prop equals image to it, right? So then when Google or whoever else reads this page, they know that this image URL here, it's not just an image that's on the page, it's not a random picture or a navigational element or an icon. It is an image of the person whose name is Jane Doe, right? And this person has a job title of professor. Where does and where is this person from? An address, with this street address in Seattle, Washington, at 98052, right? And this person has this telephone number and this email address. So when Google comes and they reads this page, or whoever, Google, Yahoo, Bing, what have you, when they read this page, they're still reading all the same content. And when you look at it from a browser perspective, it looks exactly the same. But when the search engine comes and reads it, they know what everything on the page is. So let me go back. I'm going to use my enigmaly.com as an example again. So I've got these few paragraphs of text right here, right? Now, what I have done is I marked up these few paragraphs of text with these pieces of information. So while I conversationally said it, I'm not listing it as a list of facts. I don't have a table here. I just wrote a paragraph. Nicholas Scott Molina is a senior software engineer at Justia, a company in Mountain View, California, blah, 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 blah. So, but I've marked up that paragraph with, span item prop equals name. Then I even split the name even more than the example gave, and I used given name, that's my first name, Nicholas, additional name, middle name, Scott, family name, Moline, is a job title, senior software engineer at works for, which is a company that has a name, which has a URL of justia.com and a name of Justia. That company in location, city of Mountain View, contained in the state of California, right? So in that sentence, I wrote one sentence. It was a conversational sentence. A human can read it and understand it, but now a human can read it and understand it. Now the computer can read it and understand it too. So and Google created us a little tool so that we can find out just how well the computer can read it. So this is called the Structured Data Testing Tool. If you search Structured Data Testing Tool in Google, it will be the first result. You can put a URL in here, and you can hit preview. And what Google will do is it will read that page and tell you what data they can get out of it. So the first thing, I'll show you real quick, authorship is working for this web page. I associated the authorship markup, right? We talked about that at the beginning. And how did I do that? I used rel equals author, and I linked to a Google Plus page, and then it's telling me, it's scoring me here, it's grading me. It says, is there a link from the website to Google Plus? Yes. Is there a contributor to link from, what just happened? I've lost the internet. Live demos. Hey, there we go. I have a contributor to link from my Google Plus profile to nickmolin.com. Yes, so authorship has been marked up, so it knows that when I do a snippet, it's going to put that by Nick Moline, more by Nick Moline right here, right? Then I come down, and I've got a lot of microdata on this page here, but here's schema.org/person. I found an item, schema.org/person. Their telephone number, 707-PRO-NICK. Their image, nickmoline.com/optimize/square-avatar.jpg. The name, given name, Nicholas Scott Moline, a senior software engineer. Where? The company name Justio, which is in a city named of Mountain View, which is in the state of California. All that data is in here, and Google can read it, and they actually pulled all that little bit. Even though it's a conversational paragraph, Google knows everything. That Google can read it just as well, in fact, maybe even a little bit better than the humans can now. So why should I do it? Why does it matter? Why mark it up? So I asked earlier if people know about the knowledge graph. Google created this thing called the knowledge graph, where they're trying to take the data that they're indexing on the web and make it not just a list of pages and text and words on a page, but facts and figures and information, so that when you ask Google a question like, how tall is Michael Jordan? Google gives you an actual answer. 6'6" tall. Tall guy. You know, they'll also pull up some bio information with a lot of these little bits of microdata in here, and if you can see, it pulled the height right out of this data that they pulled here. I asked it for the height, how tall, and Google said, I have that as a discrete piece of data that they scraped off of a page somewhere, right? Now, a lot of the knowledge graph is scraped off of pages that aren't marked up, and Google did their very best to get that information. But if we make the job easier for Google, then those answers are going to start coming from us. And they've already said that's what they want. That's the idea behind schema.org, is to populate the knowledge graph so that they can actually get this information faster, easier, and more efficiently. So you can ask it questions like, what is the capital of Illinois? And it gives you not only the answer, but it starts giving you facts about it. Here's a map of Springfield, Illinois, and the little details, the current weather, or at least the weather as of 1 o'clock in the morning when I put the slide in. Right, and things. And then you can ask it in temporal information. You can say, did the Blackhawks win their last game? And the answer is yes, and it took a really, really long time for it to happen. And here's the score. But what's more interesting is Google's taking information not just from the knowledge graph, but they're taking the information from you. I was signed into Google when I made this search. I was signed in with my Google account. So on my Android phone, in an app called Google Now, Google suddenly associated the fact that I did a search for Blackhawks with me. And on Google Now it said, well, if I search for whether or not they won their last game, I might care about when the next game is. So on Google Now, without me ever asking the question, Google Now added a card telling me that there's a Blackhawks game tonight, right? There's that preview link, and I can tap that link on my phone, and the interface has gotten so quick that I never ask the question. They're starting to predictively ask the questions for you. This becomes very important with interfaces where asking that question becomes hard, where there isn't a keyboard or a mouse, where you have a very small screen that can only present a small amount of information, where you don't know, where you can't really ask it detailed questions, but you still want the answer, where you're wearing something like Google Glass. All right, so we've made it through. We have a little bit of time left. Who wants a demonstration of Glass? Anyone? One, okay.
So one question,
Yes.
are you guys pulling any microdata into Justia in any way? Like, have you guys used schema?
We are not pulling it in, we are putting it out.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Was Google pulling it out?
We might, if sources start putting schema.org data in their stuff, I will be a very, very happy person, because it will make writing my scraping scripts that much simpler.
And I just had a kind of a general question about using this. How granular is too granular on things like that? it's like, there has to be a level at which the sheer amount of things you can mark up becomes a little bit unusable.
Right.
And I don't know, it's like, do you
Well,
think
you-
the standards are up to a point where they can say where enough is enough?
Well, they don't want to overcomplicate the standards on schema.org. And if you look at schema.org, in fact, I wanted to show this, but I didn't. Schema.org is far from perfect. There are some things on it that simply don't make sense. Like schema.org/attorney. You would think a schema.org/attorney, which does exist, would be a person. It's not. Schema.org/attorney is a business. So somebody tried to go granular on business down to an attorney, and they think, oh, it's a law firm, so we'll call it an attorney. But it's confusing. So yes, there certainly comes a point when you mark up something too much, and there have been proposals submitted. I'm submitting one myself on why schema.org/attorney should go away, because it's wrong.
And have they addressed what I would call, non-objective things, subjective questions? So,
They have.
so if I ask what the best Star Trek movie and they don't come back with radical
Oh,
comments.
subjective stuff? Well, they do have stuff in here for ratings and stuff like that.
Okay.
So they will take your subjective feels. So right now, Google's only really looking at the stuff that's marked up that actually has a associated attribute in schema.org. There is an extension mechanism for schema.org, and there are people writing proposals. I'm working on one myself. I'm going to collaborate with LI and many of you on it, on how to mark up case law and codes and statutes and all that stuff, because there isn't a schema.org that really matches. The closest is one called Scholarly Article.
Just thinking how that would work in with like relevance ranking and weight, or
I don't know.
okay.
And they don't know either, quite frankly. You ask them the same question, and it was at Google I/O, and we were asking that sort of question: is schema.org going to affect your ranking? Their answer to that is, I'm officially supposed to say no, but I don't know. It might eventually, right? So the relevance comes to it, and when they do have stuff in here for subjective things. They also have stuff for ideas and thoughts and stuff like that. So.
Okay.
I mean, we're very, very interested in this at this point, and have a bunch of subsidiary issues to solve before we can really fully deploy it. We don't really know how to manage microdata in and out of our publishing process, particularly as we're experimenting with it. That's one thing. But Nick's thing about the attorney problem is sort of spread throughout all of schema.org, where schema.org basically, from one perspective, started out as a way for Google to support all their local search stuff for business, right? So it intersects that badly in some ways. I mean, that's why they think of an attorney as a business, because they want to be able to pop up the map of how to get to the divorce lawyer's office and whatnot, with everything else. So if you think about us looking at however many gajillion pages of CFR and wanting to treat the objects that are regulated in the CFR as if they are real-world things like milk, for example. What is that in schema.org right now? Well, it's a product. But schema.org kind of understands a product as being something that appears in a catalog that they're trying to disambiguate between the guy who's got it for sale and the guy who's offering the user manual. We all know that problem. So it's done from it's a perfect example of a data model that's done from one perspective with a bunch of people trying to use it from another. Mm-hmm. And trying to write around that is not especially easy.
I will say that they are incredibly receptive to fixing this problem. And I talked to Google's representative from on the schema.org panel, and they very much want proposals of things that make sense. So they don't want to write up their own spec for how to mark up legal information, because they don't understand legal information, and they know that. They know they screwed up with /attorney, right? They actually want members of the legal community to go and submit these specs. So that's why we should, kind of work on this type of stuff together, write up a good spec, and say, look, This is a loose, a clean, not too granular that it's ridiculous amount of markup, and spec that we can mark up our data with that makes sense, where we indicate what's a citation, what's a docket number, what's a attribute, and the things that are related to it. And if we can get that structured data marked up in a clean way, then, and get a proposal submitted to schema.org, we have a very good chance of getting it approved and then having our legal data start showing up in things like Google Now. Any other questions before I show you guys some glass? Does anybody here have an objection to having their picture taken?
Other than aesthetic?
All right. So what I've got here, this little tool will let me, as long as I'm tethered to it, will let you guys see what I can see. Now, everything that's black in this little window is clear or translucent when I look through glass. So just think of it as if I'm looking through this at you right now, I can see the time overlaid over people's heads. Right, and there's a trick in this device that tricks the eye into thinking that the image is actually about 4 feet away, so that I'm actually using my distance vision to see it, not my close-up vision, which is a neat little trick that's done with this prism that's here in the front and a projector that reflects the image into my eye to give me that effect. So because it's a reflected image through a clear medium, it's like looking through a two-way mirror. I can see the thing that's put on the two-way mirror, but I can also see through it to see you. Also, it sits above my line of vision, so it's not obscuring my line of vision. As I'm looking at you, I'm not actually looking at it. I know you guys are all looking at it, but I'm not looking at it because it's actually up. In order for me to look at it, I actually have to look up. So I can wake it up in a couple of ways. I can look up, wake it up. If I want to put it back to sleep, I can give a little nod, and it goes to sleep. I can also tap the little trackpad here on the side and wake it up. The trackpad is also how I navigate this device, so I can scroll backward through time. There's a couple of hangouts I did with Tim. Here's some pictures I took last night. All right, so some questions I was asking it. And things like that. You notice on the bottom, right under the time, there's a little prompt in quotes where it says, "Okay, glass." And when I said that, it brought up my main menu, and I can say, "Take a picture." And there's a picture of all you guys. All right, so bring that back up here. When I have a picture up here, if I tap it, I get different items. I can delete the picture, or I can share the picture. I'll go ahead and share the picture. It'll ask me where I want to share it to. I'll share it to Twitter. Go ahead and share that to Twitter. And now this picture that I just took of you guys has been shared to Twitter. So from a camera perspective, it's a very simple device. It's always there, always available. I don't have to talk to it to take a picture. There's a little shutter button up here, so I can take a picture just by reaching up and tapping it. But it's always there, always available for me to take a picture. If I press and hold it, or I ask it to record a video, say hi everyone.
Hi.
It's recording a little video. By default, it records for 10 seconds. I'm just going to hit 8, 9, 10, and it's done. And it stops. And now that video is there. If I were to scroll back to it, it'll talk it. You can't hear it, but I can hear it. And I should point out that this mirroring tool, it's a lot smoother than this on glass. But the mirroring tool has a very, very low refresh rate, about 4 frames per second, so it looks very choppy. I can say, okay, glass, Google. No network connectivity. See, this is why I want to try to get things out. It's because I'm not signed into the client. Just a second here. We got a whole 14 minutes. That darn 5-hour timeout, right? So I'm actually using Bluetooth to tether from the from the glass to my phone, and then my phone is connected to the Wi-Fi network and is going out through that. I could just go through the cellular network through Bluetooth, and if I was on a Wi-Fi network that didn't have what's called a captive portal system, where you have to go sign in on a web page, I could just connect this straight to Wi-Fi. So at home, this connects straight to Wi-Fi. I don't use the phone at all. At work, same thing. Here, I have to do a workaround to get through it. I tried to do another workaround earlier, but it didn't work. So let's see if Google now knows. Let's go back to. All right, I got data. All right, let's try this again. Okay, Glass. Google. Pictures of cats. All right, everyone collectively. All right, now of course it gives me a little collage. This is essentially, if you were to do a Google image search for cats right now, it would pull up the same collage of pictures as the first 6 pictures. But if I go into it, I can scroll through every single one, and we can get close-up looks at all the cute little kitties. All right, let's try something else. Okay, Glass. Google. Chicago Kent College of Law. All right, now I was searching for a place, so it's giving me the information about this place, and it thinks that, you know, if I wanted this place, I probably am asking it because I want to go there. I can tap this, it gives me a little map, I can tap this, I can go straight to get directions, or I can call and see who I get. And this will act as a Bluetooth headset to my phone and make a phone call. All right, let's try again. Let's try some of the examples that I used on here. Okay, Glass. Google. How tall is Michael Jordan? All right. Now you can't hear this, but this voice inside my head just read that card to me and told me that Michael Jordan is 6 foot 6 inches tall. So let's try another one here. Okay, Glass. Google. How do I say thank you in Japanese? And then it just pronounced it for me so that I could say that. Arigato, which I pronounced badly. But there you go. So it does a lot of these searches, and these searches are searches against the knowledge graph. I'm searching for discrete facts. If I try to search for something that isn't in the knowledge graph, the information it gives me is a lot less useful because it tries to give me the same sort of 10 links that it gives me in a Google search, but without a way to click them. So let's try this. Okay, Glass. Google. Title 17 of the CFR. Oh, there you go. Look, it's Cornell.edu. But there's a little bit of information there. But I'm tapping it. Nothing's happening. So you can see why having discrete facts becomes all the more important on a device that you are limited to the amount of information you can get back. I would do that search, I would be all sad and disappointed, and I would have to then turn and go to my phone or a computer and go do the search again in order to actually get the information I'm looking for. So that is why marking the data up with semantic web markup, and I'm not saying that Cornell's is not marked up, I don't know if it is or not, but they're also not indexing other people's semantic markup yet, just their small list of trusted sites. They want to trust more. So as more data gets in there, I can start getting real answers even on a device that's frictionless. All right. I'll try a couple more little things here. Okay, Glass. Send a message to Tim Stanley. Hi, Tim. It's almost time to join us. All right, I'm sending a text message right now. I just sent a message to Tim, and the reason I sent a message to my boss is I'm about to do a Google Plus Hangout on Glass, and he will see all you guys. Now, again, I must point out, the audio does not mirror into my computer, so you will not be able to hear him. Tim will be the voice inside my head.
Like he likes to be.
That's a scary thought, I know.
You can
And
do
also
that
keep in
way.
mind that on my screen it is full video. I can see him moving
So
around.
this is like the worst device for schizophrenics ever.
It'll fit in. It'll make them fit in.
Right.
Just
So
like cell phones.
yeah. Yeah, so again, the frame rate of the mirroring device to here is very low. So while it's full video on here, it's going to be a low speed here. I got a ding here, so I'm going to, Tim sent me a message. Okay, he's ready for us, all right?
All right, let's go.
All right.
All right, so I'm going to, there we go. Here's my hangout I did with him earlier. So I'm going to tap this, I'm going to say hangout. We'll see if Tim answers. I'm hearing ringing inside my head now. That's not a good sign. I really wish they would make the sound mirror so that you can actually hear what I'm hearing. Right? Hey, and there's Rio of the high fives.
Oh.
Hey, everybody say hi, Rio.
Hi, Rio.
So there's Tim Stanley, but wave very slowly, Tim, because I can't see you. So that's a hangout. Now the weird thing about hangouts is, of course, the camera is not facing me, so Tim doesn't see me. I'm hanging out with him. Normally, when you do a video call, he would see that you would be doing a video call where they're looking at you, right? So in order to do a video call with this, where he would actually see me, I would have to actually be looking at a mirror. Instead, Tim is really having to hang out with you, but only I can hear him. So the device is interesting. It's got some things that should be thought out, but there you go. We'll go ahead and say bye to Tim. Bye, everyone. All right, so in a hangout, I can hit people here, and I can invite more people and hang out with multiple people who you wouldn't be able to see me. Or I can mute my video, I can mute my mic, there's the invite more, or I can leave. No, I'm out of the hangout.
How long can you hang out with someone before your battery?
That
Like
depends
8
on-
minutes or something?
I have done full motion video for a half hour and still had half my battery life. Notice I did say earlier when you record a video, it normally records for 10 seconds, but if you just tap it, it will extend and it will just keep recording until you either run out of disk space or you run out of battery. It has 16 gigs of storage. It's always that you're going to run out of battery before you run out of disk space. So there you go. There's about 5 minutes left for any more questions. Does anybody have any questions? Anything else you want to see me do with class so that you can see what it looks like? I'd love to show you driving directions, but it doesn't really work really well when you're indoors. Or walking directions, same difference. Some buildings are marked up for indoor walking directions, and I can turn it on and I can use it to direct me around. Chicago Kent is not one of those places.
What's the plan for commercial availability?
So what they are saying is they don't know exactly when. They are Sergey Brin. His desire is for them to be available by the end of the year, and the people say Sergey says he wants it to be available at the end of the year, and that is very ambitious. So they won't say they will be available at the end of the year. They say he wants it to be. On the other hand, you go and ask Eric Schmidt the same question, and he says, "Oh, sometime in early 2014." So they don't really know. It's going to depend on, it's in the beta test phase right now. There are less than 10,000 people in the world with this thing on right now. There were 2,000 at Google I/O 2012, which is where I signed up. Another 8,000 who got in If I Had Glass. They've given away about, somewhere between 1,000 and 5,000 of those If I Had Glass people so far. They're still distributing them right now. And then there's an unknown number of Google employees who have them, but it's a very, very small group compare it for a device like this. And there are definitely a lot of things about it that are being worked out and figured out, and I'm providing feedback every day. I provided some feedback this morning of a feature that was working yesterday and suddenly isn't working today, which is why I did the Hangout in a weird way, because the page I would normally go to set up, you have to set up in advance your share contacts of who you can share with, and the share contact page disappeared this morning. So when I went to go add Tim as a share contact, I couldn't do it. I had previously had him as a shared contact, and I don't know how he disappeared, which is another bug. But for some strange reason, that happened, and I couldn't share with him. But they're making tweaks and changes every single day. They're working on it. Developers are making apps for it. It's early in the project, and it's a really cool experiment that has ways to go. Any other questions? Okay, well, we've got, I think, 3 minutes to go get ready for the closing plenary, so. Huh? If you want to ask me more questions or anything like that, I've got my card down here. Feel free to take one.
I'm staring at it.
Where is the closing plenary? Are there door prizes this year?
You're gonna get a box lunch.
I don't know, I think you get a prize for still being here.
What point are we?
We'll see you
Have a
later.
nice box lunch.
Point we're leaving XML and putting in HTML.
I still haven't managed to deep dish pizza yet.
Day is still young.
On the markup stuff, I think that makes sense.
Give it.
Right, exactly, so, I mean, worst case scenario.
Maybe all.
Right, exactly. I'm gonna keep my.
How do we?
Yeah, no, I have one. I just.
Well, I mean, you can speak of the public.
I just wanna go back to the
Not quite how we have it modeled.
I lived in Massachusetts for 8 years, and then I lived in Syracuse. I said it for 10 years.
Not quite how we, quite how it's.
Yeah, I don't know, I think it's just one.
And also, I don't even know what meeting.
All over the back of the bridge. And then I went to the ground, back on the bridge. That's and that's something I would never do, actually, but I think about it.
Totally agree. I mean, this is what has stopped me from pursuing it.
I love
Because I'm like, well, I could just write up a spec.
Right there.
And then, one, I'm not.
Where do you live?
I'm legally trained. And I've worked with this stuff for 6 years now, so I know the benefit.
About 22 miles away from Rutgers-Hampton.
Okay.
It's down, I live more southern. Whenever I hear people refer to like Cherry Hill and stuff, it's South Jersey, I'm like, because we're like dividing the state. Where you live? North Jersey, it's South Jersey.
Before actually moving to
Put in RDFA markup for all. Mark that up with product.
Sure.
And see what happens.
Nice meeting you again, and I hope you had a nice time here, I enjoyed your talk, and
Did it go as horrible as I thought I did?
I'm pumped. What's gonna be the approximate retail cost of Nomex?
We don't know that either.
But yes.
Their hope is between.
There's a lot of rumor that they're shooting for $299.
Whoa.
Yeah, to 500, depending. But they don't want to get over
You know, when you get over
$500.
500, people aren't going to buy what's essentially an accessory to the
So.
internet, right? So,
Yeah.
so
They're
their
thinking
goal
along the lines
is
of a
$299. They
phone.
don't know if they can get there.
Does it come in different colors?
It comes
They
in
do.
5 colors right now. This color is named Cotton. They
they have shale,
Not white.
they have
Not white, not shale,
charcoal,
it's shale, not gray, it's charcoal, not black.
it's sky, not blue.
And it's
And it's
tangerine,
tangerine.
not orange.
I like that. I could get a couple, accessorize.
Yeah.
You could really fool people by changing the color and keeping your outfit.
Oh, yeah. Why don't you just get a Sharpie